Hello, everybody. Mr. A here. This is our final matchup, our championship matchup. So here we are. Let me announce the winners from the last matchup from the Final Four. See if I can get you guys a good angle because I'm using my computer here. So we had what I would call an upset because one of our most popular books this whole time, and it's always been a popular book in my classroom, actually lost. Whoosh upset A Bad Case of Stripes. So Whoosh advances to the championship matchup. On this side is what I predicted. Salt in His Shoes is our winner on that side. So our championship matchup is Salt in His Shoes versus Whoosh. So there you are. There's our championship matchup. Salt in His Shoes versus Whoosh. So awesome. Let's get to it. Let's start reading, and let's see who our champion's going to be. All right. Don't mind the teacher mess here. We got plenty of stuff going on in this converted office that we have going here now. It's actually been great space for us and for the kids, but it's things don't always get put away. But, it's just the way it goes sometimes. So let's get moving on our books and see who we are going to crown our champion. So here we go. Salt in His Shoes, the Michael Jordan story, and then Whoosh, the story of Lonnie Johnson, the Super Soaker creator. Let's start with Salt in His Shoes. Let me get this down to a better level. There we go. Salt in His Shoes, Michael Jordan in a Pursuit of a Dream. I hope that sunlight doesn't mess us up too much. This is by Dolores Jordan and with Rosalind M. Jordan. I love that picture. I love the illustrations on this one too, in this book. By Kadir Nelson is the illustrator. All right, here we go. Michael loved to play basketball. Every Saturday, he followed his older brothers, Larry and Ronnie, to the park, hoping that they would let him play. And if one of the guys who usually played with the team didn't show, they always did. But there was one problem. His name was Mark, and he was the tallest boy on the court. "What's the matter, Mikey? Too short?" Mark flapped his arms in Michael's face. "Over here," shouted Larry. But when Michael threw the ball, Mark's long arms came out of nowhere and knocked the ball away. It flew into the hands of a player on Mark's team. He made the basket, and the game was over, just like that. "I'm really sorry, guys. If I were taller, that wouldn't have happened." All the way home, Michael apologized, even though no one was mad at him. His oldest brother, Ronnie, tried to cheer him up. "Look, little brother, you played good today. Don't worry, we'll win the next time." When they got home, Michael went into the kitchen where Mama was cooking dinner. He was still disappointed, and she could tell. "You guys lost again today, huh?" Michael nodded. He sat quietly for a minute, then said, "Mama, how can I grow taller?" Now, Mama knew the answer to a lot of questions, but this was a tough one. She thought for a moment as she sprinkled salt and pepper on the chicken she was making for dinner. Then she smiled, looked at Michael, and said, "Salt." "Salt?" Michael looked at his mama. "Salt in your shoes. We'll put salt in your shoes and say a prayer every night. Before you know it, you'll be taller," she replied. "Salt in my shoes?" Michael said quietly to himself. Surely Mama was teasing. He sat staring out the window, trying to figure out how salt was going to help him grow. He noticed the rose bushes outside in Mama's garden. They had grown high along the fence, and roses of all colors were blooming on the vines. He thought to himself, "I remember when Mama first planted those bushes." Michael's face lit up. If Mama knows how to make those rose bushes grow taller, then maybe she's right. Maybe salt in my shoes really will help me grow. Growing more excited, Michael twirled around and started asking lots of questions. Mama, how long will it take? And how tall do you think I'll get? Smiling, Mama sat down next to him and explained. In order for you to grow taller, in order for this to work, the most important things you have to do are be patient and listen to what I tell you and say your prayers every night. Listening carefully, Michael shook his head. Okay, Mama, I'll be patient. But what does saying my prayers have to do with it? Everything, Mama replied, and she hugged him. Now go wash up and tell your brothers and sisters to get ready for dinner. Michael dashed out of the kitchen, almost knocking over his father, who was walking in. What's he up to now? Asked Daddy. Oh, the usual, laughed Mama, chasing a dream. Later during dinner, Mama noticed that Michael was barely eating anything. He was already daydreaming about being taller. Michael, first things first, you won't grow if you don't eat, especially your vegetables, Mama said. But I'm not really hungry, he said. Raising her eyebrows, Mama gave him a stern look. Slowly, Michael picked up his fork and began to eat. Minutes later, his plate was clean and he was asking for more. That evening at bedtime, Michael set his favorite game shoes on the floor next to the growth chart hanging on the wall. Then he put on his pajamas, said his prayers, and jumped into bed. When Mama came in, Michael was fast asleep. By the look on his face, she could tell he was already playing basketball in his dreams. Standing by his bed, Mama sprinkled salt in his shoes. Then she prayed quietly over him, as she did all her children. Dear God, please help Michael be the best he can be and to give his best in all that he does. And Lord, could you please make him just a little bit taller tomorrow than he is today? Thank you. Amen. After that night, Michael wore his favorite game shoes everywhere he went, even to church. And he stopped going to the park with his brothers on Saturdays. Instead, he stayed home and practiced. He wanted to grow a few more inches before he went back to the park. After 2 months of practicing and waiting patiently and praying, Michael stood next to the growth chart on his wall. Nothing. He hadn't grown an inch. He was disappointed. But he didn't stop believing. I've just got to give it time, like Mama said, Michael thought to himself. And that's what he did. Two more months of practicing went by and still nothing. Now Michael was becoming a little sad. Not only had he not grown 1 inch, but he also missed playing basketball with Larry and Ronnie. About the only thing he didn't miss was being picked on by Mark. When the next Saturday came, his brothers tried to get Michael to go with them to the park, but he wouldn't budge. Mama had begun to worry. When she saw Michael sitting alone on the steps, she said to Daddy, maybe you should go out and talk to him. So Daddy went out and sat with Michael. What's wrong, son? You haven't gone to the park with your brothers for a while now. Are you okay? Michael didn't say anything at first. Then he looked at Daddy and said, I thought I would at least be a few inches taller by now. I did everything Mama told me to do, but nothing's happened. Michael, why do you want to be taller? Daddy asked. If I were taller, I'd be a great player and I could help my team win, Michael answered. But you are a great player, son. And you already have everything it takes to be a winner, right in here. Daddy tapped Michael on his chest. Being taller may help you play a little better, but not as much as practice, determination, and giving your best will. Those are the things that make you a real winner. Michael thought about what Daddy said. Just for a minute. Then suddenly, he jumped up and took off. "Where are you going?" Daddy yelled after him. "I've got a game today and I'm late," Michael yelled back. When Michael reached the park, the game had already started. He sat on the bench hoping he would get a chance to play, and he did. The game was almost over and the score was tied when John, one of the guys on Michael's team, fell and hurt himself. Here was Michael's chance. Michael joined his team in the huddle as they gathered on the sideline for a timeout. "Oh, the game is all tied. All we need is 1 point. Who wants to take the shot?" Ronnie asked. He looked in Michael's direction. Feeling more confident than ever, Michael said, "I'll do it." When the whistle blew and the game began again, Mark began to pick on Michael as usual. "Still trying to play with the big boys, huh?" Mark taunted. But Michael paid him no attention. Taller or not, he had been practicing, and today he was determined to win. Larry threw the ball inbounds to Michael. Michael caught it, bounced it for a moment, then took off running. As he approached Mark, Michael shifted to his right. Mark followed, but while he was still shifting, Michael spun to his left. He stepped back behind Mark and shot. The ball arced far above his opponent's hand and fell silently through the hoop. 2 points. The game was over. Michael's team had won. It was just as Michael had dreamed. When he realized what he had done, Michael took off running and didn't stop until he had reached home. Bursting through the door, he shouted, "I did it, Daddy! I did it! I shot right over the tall guy's head and we won the game." Running in behind him, Ronnie and Larry joined in the celebration. "That's right, little brother. You did it. You won the game for us." Michael remembered the look that Ronnie gave him during that last time out of the game and said, "No, we won the game, but I was the star." They all laughed. After that day, Mama stopped putting salt in Michael's shoes. But Michael did not stop being patient and working hard and praying. So that must be what made Michael grow to be a 6'6" tall basketball superstar. All right, that's it for Salt in His Shoes. So if that's your favorite, make sure you vote for Salt in His Shoes. All right, next book. And final book of this March Madness series is Whoosh. I'm really excited that Whoosh made it to the finals. I did not expect that. This is one of my favorite books to read, but usually my students definitely choose a couple of the others. So I was pleasantly surprised to see that Whoosh, the Lonnie Johnson story, make it to the finals. So here we go. Whoosh by Chris Barton. Every day brought a challenge for young Lonnie Johnson, the challenge of finding space for his stuff. 6 Johnson kids were squeezed into their parents' small house in Mobile, Alabama. Lonnie would have loved to have a workshop of his own, but there just wasn't room. There was nowhere to keep his rocket kit, his bamboo shooters, rubber band guns, erect go-kart engine, bolts and screws and other spare parts his dad let him bring in from the shed, and various other things he hauled back from the junkyard. Lonnie loved building and creating. Ideas for inventions just kept on flowing. He learned how to make rockets from scratch. Kids at school gathered to watch Lonnie launch them. And he learned how to make rocket fuel. When it caught fire in the kitchen, Lonnie's mom didn't make him stop. She just sent him to work outside. Lonnie wanted to spend his life designing things, building things, and getting them to work. He wanted to be an engineer. However, Lonnie took an exam that said he would not make a very good one. His dream had been challenged. Lonnie was discouraged, but he knew that whoever graded his test hadn't met Linux. Inspired by a TV show, Lonnie had built his own robot. He made it out of scrap metal and named it Linux. Compressed air cylinders and valves allowed Linux body to turn and its arms to move. The switches came from an old broken jukebox. Lonnie used a tape recorder to program Linux. And as a bonus, the reels looked like eyes. Lonnie wanted to enter his creation in a science fair, but he couldn't get the transmitter to work. Without it, Lonnie couldn't send commands to Linux. Science fairs came and went, and Lonnie missed one, then another, until he got an idea. Now, Lonnie may or may not have asked before he borrowed his little sister's walkie-talkie. But it fixed the transmission issue. His school's team took freshly finished Linux to a 1968 science fair at the University of Alabama, where only 5 years earlier, African-American students hadn't even been allowed. Having to compete in a place that still wasn't very welcoming, now that was a challenge with a capital C. Against other schools from all over the state, Lonnie's team won first place. Soon, Lonnie left home to go to college at Tuskegee Institute, where he stood out as a self-confident, insightful, creative thinker. He stood out as a student who asked the right questions, precisely defined problems, and formulated solutions. And he stood out as a guy who built his own booming sound system out of cast-off electronics. It even had lights that flashed in sync with the beat. Lonnie sometimes studied right in the middle of his own parties. The extra studying paid off. Engineer after graduation, and that took him beyond Alabama, way beyond. When NASA was sending an orbiter and probe called Galileo to Jupiter, the space agency needed to ensure a constant supply of power to the orbiter's computer memory. The engineer who had to figure out how to do it was Lonnie. His challenge was to come up with a lightweight backup system to keep essential functions going in case the main power was lost. It wasn't easy, it wasn't obvious, but Lonnie found a solution. Some at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory doubted his idea would work. Lonnie convinced them it would. He was right. As it photographed Jupiter and its moons, Galileo was supported by the power package that Lonnie designed. Much of what we know about Jupiter could have been at risk in a power failure if not for Lonnie. Ideas for other problems to solve kept on flowing. They flowed whether Lonnie was working with hundreds of people at NASA or own inventions in, finally, his own workshop. Lonnie knew the world's millions of refrigerators and air conditioners needed a new cooling system, one that didn't use R12, a chemical that was bad for the environment. He had an idea for using water and air pressure instead. To test his idea, he made a pump and nozzle, connected them to the bathroom faucet, turned on the faucet, turned on the pump, and then whoosh! The stream that blasted across the bathroom was so powerful, it created a curtain swirling breeze. It also gave Lonnie an idea for yet another invention. This, he thought, would make a great water gun. First, he had to find or make the parts, including a pump small enough for a child to handle. Then he had to glue the parts together into a prototype, an early version with room for improvement. Finally, Lonnie tested his squirt gun at a picnic. "Does it really work?" a man asked. "Sure," Lonnie said. "Want to see?" Lonnie worked the pump, which squeezed the air into the chamber. When he pulled the trigger, the air escaped, forcing water out with a whoosh. For a water battle to be a fair fight, there couldn't be just one of Lonnie's water guns. He needed help making more. So he went to toy company after toy company after toy company. The word no flowed again and again. But finally, one company said yes. It planned to make his water gun. Lonnie also had other projects: a water-propelled toy airplane, 2 kinds of engines, and his cooling system. He found investors to provide the money for turning his ideas into products people could buy. He made a leap of faith, quit his day job, and devoted himself to full-time inventing. But soon, each plan fell apart. Even the one for the water gun. These things sometimes happen, but when they happen one after another to the same person, well, that's some pretty bad luck. Lonnie didn't have a job. He didn't have the money he'd been counting on. He and his family had to move out of their home and into a little apartment. He was angry and scared. But Lonnie had dealt with challenges all his life. He knew a lot about solving problems, and he still believed in his inventions, especially the water gun. Lonnie went looking for another toy company. In 1989, he found a toy maker who was interested in seeing the water gun if Lonnie ever happened to be in Philadelphia. But don't make a special trip, the guy said. Lonnie made a special trip. In his wife's suitcase, he carried a new prototype. He unpacked it, filled the tank with water, pumped the gun until the air pressure was good and high, and you guys know what happens next. Whoosh! Wow. Kids everywhere agreed with that wow. Lonnie's water gun, called the Super Soaker, became a smash hit. In no time, there were Super Soakers in backyards and on beaches, in parks and on playgrounds. Each sale of a Super Soaker put a little money into Lonnie's pocket. All those hours, all those years that Lonnie spent in his workshop had paid off big time. Now he could afford to do just about anything he wanted. So what did Lonnie do? He got a bigger workshop, which is where you'll find him today, because facing challenges, solving problems, and building things are what Lonnie Johnson loves to do, and his ideas just keep on flowing. And that's the end. All right, so book number 2, Whoosh. So again, you have to vote for our winner. Who is going to be the champion? Is it going to be Salt in His Shoes, Michael Jordan in A Pursuit of a Dream, or is it going to be Whoosh, Lonnie Johnson's Super Soaking Stream of Inventions? 2 awesome books, 2 great books about perseverance and not giving up, believing in yourself, working hard, all those good things that can provoke great conversations with your students or your own children. But please go vote, and let's see who our real winner is going to be. I'm really excited to see who is our champion. It's the first time I've ever done this March Madness, and I will definitely do it again each spring from here on out as long as I'm an educator. And I really hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And please comment, vote for your winner, which one you want to win. And thank you all for watching. And I will do a follow-up video so you guys know who is our champion. All right, Mr. A signing off. Thanks, everybody.